You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready? The bass be louder.
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to the Savoir Faire audio experience. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and following. We see you. We appreciate you. I just want to say we bring so many cool guests on to interview and talk with Savoir Faire, and I love kind of recording and putting the process out for you guys to listen. But I'm always motivated by people that are just out there dominating in their field and really pushing things. And obviously, I learn a lot from them, but so do you. So today, I'm very excited to speak with this person. He's not only a public speaker, but also an author. So I want to introduce you guys to Dr. Sam Adeyemi. How you doing, Sam?
I am doing great, Robert. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you finding some time to chit-chat with us today and learn a little bit more about you and some of the new projects that you're kind of diving into. I want to learn a little bit more about the history of Dr. Sam here, and if we can dive into kind of, you can give me some back history. I want to kind of know a little bit about your upbringing and what kind of led you into becoming a public speaker, maybe creating business, and then now being an author.
Thank you so much. So I grew up in Nigeria. My dad was a civil servant. He worked for the government. And somewhere along the line, he decided to go into business. And he went into building construction business. His own dad was also a builder. So I thought, let me continue in the family tradition. So I studied civil engineering. So it was like my job was supposed to be waiting for me by the time I was through school. But by the time I was through college, his business was no more. So I had to search for a job. I think that was a very significant turning point in my life because I was searching and searching and searching for a job. The economy was poor, and I couldn't get a job for almost 2 years. I despaired. I experienced some of my lowest moments during that time, and I had to find a way out. That was when I was asking myself, is there any system that can guarantee success, any principles, any lessons? I began to read. One of the first set of books I read was Tough Times Never Last, But Tough People Do by Robert H. Schuller. And there were some things I read in the book that were paradigm shifters. In fact, they almost twisted my brain. One of them was, attitudes are more important than facts. And it was like, wait, what are you saying? Facts are facts. Facts are sacred. How can attitudes be more important than facts? The fact is the fact. And I had to read over and over and over until I understood it. It's amazing the way we humans have been wired to relate with nature. Whatever pictures become dominant in our hearts and minds and the emotions we attach to them, they turn us into magnets. They attract or create the material equivalent in our world. That was what changed everything for me. So, okay, yes, eventually I got to work on a site, on a construction site, a site engineer. But I did only 8 months there. These new things that I was learning about the human mind and how we can develop our mindset, how we can develop faith, everything was changing my life. So at the same time, I was very active in church, in the youth group, and I had been appointed a youth pastor and an associate to my pastor in church while I was working as an engineer. I just found out that on the church angle, I was getting a lot of results, and it was coming real easy for me, right? So at some point, a position opened up in church, a director position, and I just resigned on the side, went to church, and began to work at a leadership position, an executive position. Now, a few years down the line, I launched a radio broadcast. I called it Success Power. All those things I was reading, applying to my life with results, I began to teach them back in Nigeria. This February, it was exactly 30 years since people heard my voice on radio for the first time. And it was an instant hit. Just remember, this was Africa. Millions of people were experiencing what I also had gone through, experiencing deprivation, not enough opportunities, and so on. So my influence grew exponentially. And then through the years, I now realize in my study of success that at the highest level, you actually help other people to succeed. Yeah, you stop focusing on yourself. You empower other people. And I realized that's what leadership is about. So I developed a passion for leadership. I began to see big gaps in Nigeria, Africa, globally in the leadership area. So I did my graduate studies in leadership. I got my master's degree in the UK on leadership studies. And then I did my doctoral program in Virginia here, at Regent University in Virginia, where I got my Doctor of Strategic Leadership degree. And at that point, I set up my consulting and coaching business. I coach C-suite leaders. I coach leaders in government and top leaders in business. That's how I got to where I am.
Okay, I love it. I love it. I always like the progression. I like to hear the story. I want to know the backstory. It's always good to know where people come from, what kind of personal life experiences people have gone through before they did what they did. And it's always unique because there's a piece of your story that you mentioned where work just wasn't there. And I like the idea of that because that's a problem solver kind of atmosphere, right? We're like, okay, there's nothing here. What am I going to do? And one of the things that I learned about myself that a lot of people appreciate is I went after job after job after job. Like my life, I must have worked for, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many companies. I was really good at closing. I was good at sales, right? So I could get any job. I could get any job. Put me in an interview, I'll get the job. But I worked through so many jobs because I never really had this like drive for success with the companies because I was seeing a switch where my ability and my effort was making somebody else rich.
Right.
And not myself. And I think that's what really switched me on to entrepreneurship. And obviously yours is a very similar idea, except that there was just a lack of work and you just decided, okay, I'm going to go here. I love stories like that because it's like one single moment in life. And sometimes it can even come down to a single day. If only we would have been thought leaders in the idea that we would have written down the day when we knew exactly our life changed, because it really is just one single moment when you know, like for me, it was sitting in the office and sitting in my boss's office and actually being able to see how much money I had earned in my commission check compared to what he was earning because I was on his team. And then I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And as soon as I went home, it was like, entrepreneurship. I can do this without him.
That's it.
So it's a weird thing, but I love the beginning part of that story. So the company that you launched is called Daystar Leadership Academy, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So DLA. And go ahead.
Yeah. So I launched that in 23 years ago now. I started the leadership school called Daystar Leadership Academy in Nigeria, the DLA. And then in 2018, then I launched the company that I call Sam Adeyemi Global Leadership Consulting, Sam Adeyemi GLC.
Okay. And that's the one that you're talking about where you've worked with political people, leadership people. Like it's just teaching leadership skills at the end of the day, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second because I'm not going to have you on here and then not ask you about leadership. So maybe you can give me like a simple rule that most people should know about leadership that is something that's abnormal, that is going to probably shock me even. There must be something in your system that's just an abnormal thought process for a leader to think about.
Thank you. Okay, so it actually comes down to the definition of leadership. And that ties into my story. So generally today, when you say leader or leadership or leaders, people's minds just go straight to the guys at the top,
Mm-hmm.
especially the guys at the top in government or the guys at the top in businesses. And today, I'm telling people, no, the thinking on leadership has shifted from that. It is not occupying a leadership position that makes you a leader. Right now, our understanding of leadership is that it is the ability to influence one or more people to achieve goals.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring the understanding down to influence, then your eyes open and you see leadership everywhere. You see that it happens at all levels. How do you account for the massive influence of parents on their children, or teachers on their pupils, or coaches, on their athletes? So leadership actually happens at all levels. It happens everywhere. But once we don't see ourselves as leaders, the problem with that is, one, we don't recognize how much influence we have. We don't build our influence intentionally, and we don't use our influence intentionally. We abandon our responsibility, and then just a few people run the world whichever way they want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, also, if we don't cultivate our influence skills, when we then have the opportunity, when we occupy those powerful positions, then we are at a loss as to what to do with people. Many business founders and CEOs tell me some of their best performing, maybe heads of departments or executives, are also very poor with people skills. They make the money, the business, but they leave a lot of broken people in the wake of their success.
Yep.
They hurt people a lot, right? So this is my big campaign. Everyone can lead. Everyone has the capacity to influence. And to influence is to have the ability to affect the state of a person or thing. All of us can do that. So I challenge everyone. You've got capacity to influence, develop it, and use it. And then I now say to those who occupy leadership positions, look, leadership is not just ordering everybody around, putting fear in their mind. No, leadership is for you to recognize the potential in people and to cultivate that potential, empower people, help them to be the best that they could be. That
Yep.
is real leadership.
That's a cool one. I've talked to a couple HR people in my past, corporate level HR people, a handful of different people about this exact topic. And my question is always comes down to, when you are hiring somebody, are you creating a job for an employee that has a really great skill set, or are you trying to put them in a box that you guys created? And that's a very unique position that I think HR reps have to think about, is the idea that, like, okay, we're looking for someone to do social media management potentially, right? It's like a simple
Right.
thing, right? So we're going to hire someone. We think from our perspective, that's someone in their early 20s that lives on social media every day. They can handle these perspectives. That's what we're looking for. That's the job title. Oh, we also want them to have a degree, even though there barely is a degree available for social media marketing.
Right.
And so they put this kind of cookie cutter thing out onto platforms and have people apply. And then all of these great people apply that are really just interested in being that person. And then if they sat down and found out that, like, oh, this person is really good at video content, but we don't really want that in our social media person, then it kind of like limitates what they actually hire and bring in, instead of saying, you know what, if you're willing to do videography and our social media marketing stuff, then we have a platform for you. We can bring you in. So I like the idea of entrepreneurs that not only are leaders, but do curate very creative people and allow them to be what they want, because I think people stay in a job a whole lot longer when they're appreciated for their own skill set, instead of having to do a different skill set completely. That they're just, then it's a job. It's not a career. Now you're just making a paycheck. You're not in for the longevity to help the company, because they don't appreciate your skill and your ability. So I like the concept of that. I also like the leadership thing. I heard this from somebody else too. The person that gets asked the questions the most, that's probably the leader in the group.
Right.
The person, yeah, you know what I mean? Like the person that everyone asks. So relationship questions with friends, if it's someone in the family constantly reaching out to ask you to, help with grandma or whatever, it's the person that gets asked the most questions is normally the leader in the family. So if you feel like you're in a position where you're getting asked a lot of questions at work and in life with your friend group, well, they're all looking up to you, even if you didn't know that, and that makes you a leader.
Mhm. Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Thank you.
That is,
I put a
that
lot
is,
of thought into some of this stuff, so I'm trying to do a lot of this stuff myself with writing
right.
and branding and becoming a life coach and
Mhm.
really allowing people to kind of open their horizons a little bit further into seeing their own unique stories and their own unique abilities and being able to empower that into becoming something more than they are. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm so, kind of really excited to see and speak with you today is because you're definitely on the same path. DLA is a very cool company. The other one that you mentioned that you're running is very cool, the leadership program.
Yeah.
But I want to switch gears a little bit because one of the things that I'm focused on right now in my career and something that you've now completed is becoming an author and writing a book and putting some information down for people. For me, I have a very unique perspective about how people should write a book or why they should write a book. But I'm very interested
Right.
in learning about your perspective because
Mhm.
Shifts, 6 Steps to Transforming Your Mindset and Elevating Your Leadership is the book
Mhm.
that you wrote. It's available on Amazon for those that are listening to us today.
Yeah.
Talk to me not only about the 6 steps of leadership, but really just tell me why you decided to take all your knowledge and put it into a book for other people.
Thank you very much. I guess first it would be the impact that books have had on my life.
Mm.
I think books are some of the wisest investments in this world. I have had the opportunity of rubbing minds with highly successful people, billionaires, just by reading their books. That's the way I see it. Somebody's built an experience over 30 years, over 40 years, and just by buying a book for 20, 25, or $30, I can get the benefit of that experience. That is smart. So I have read hundreds of books
Mm.
and they've literally changed my life. So first, that's part of what inspired me to be an author. Now, this specific title, Shift 6 Steps to Transform Your Mindset and Elevate Your Leadership, was inspired by my knowing or my realizing that most transformation efforts fail in our world at the personal, organizational, and even national levels. We started the year not long ago, and a lot of people made New Year resolutions. A good chunk of those resolutions have had accidents already. In other words, they're not working. And the big question is why? Leaders read books, attend conferences, they get excited, they get back to their organizations, they want to effect the change. It doesn't work. Why? That's what I address here because I realized as I thought about it that I had personally been able to resolve the issue and I decided to share it with the whole world. Let me put it this way. For organizations, you call it culture. For individuals, you call it habit. I was reading James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and he explained clearly how the human mind is programmed. When you face a fresh problem, your mind goes to work, creating solutions. You test some of those solutions, you find what works. Then you do what works repeatedly. Now, he said, when something becomes routine, predictable, your conscious mind pushes it down to the subconscious mind to free the conscious mind to take on fresh problems. And that's where the real big issue happens. When something goes into the subconscious mind, or you can use the word heart, it takes on a life of its own. It goes on autopilot, right? We call it second nature. So you think without thinking. It's like driving. When you begin to learn how to drive, you'll make some mistakes. Maybe the car would even stall. Once you're now used to driving, you drive without thinking about the driving process. You,
Mm-hmm.
your subconscious mind takes care of that. So sometimes you're actually cracking something that has to do with work or with home or so on while you're driving. Now, the subconscious mind is so powerful because it is automatic. It overrides the new goals that you're setting for yourself, the new decisions you're making, that the habits override. Why are New Year resolutions not working? Because the new goals don't align with the habits, with the default programming. So sometimes if you set a new goal and realize, oh my God, my current habits will not help me to achieve this goal, then you have to bring those habits out to your conscious mind. You have to ask yourself, why do I think the way I think? When did I start to think this way? This thing I'm doing is not going to get me the result I want. Okay, instead of this habit, this is what I'm going to do now, right? Maybe you want to achieve better health or better relationships and so on. Instead of doing this, I will do that. Now, that new thing, you do it repeatedly, maybe for 30 days or 60 days, then you have a new program in your subconscious. That's why I wrote the book. I'm saying leaders cannot create sustainable change except they have the skills to change the culture, to change the group mindset. And you cannot change the culture without changing mindsets and shifting people's beliefs and shifting their values. SHIFT is an acronym for my 6 steps. The S stands for see, the H for hear, the I for insight. That's where you spend time in deep reflection. You unpack those things in your subconscious. The F is for formulate. That's where you make decisions. And then the T is for transform. That's where you take action. The change happens there. And the S is for succeeding. You repeat the action. This is the principle that runs through the whole book. Whatever you see and hear consistently over time will enter your heart. It will go into your subconscious. And whatever enters your heart will put your life on autopilot. That's what the book is about. And I'm actually excited. It's the first of my books that would be published by a major publisher like Wiley. And that's why it's available everywhere, even at Walmart and Target, Barnes and Noble, and all the online stores.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that, by the way. I mean, I think that's
Thank
kind of the
you.
goal of any author, to really have some accolades and have a organization come in and say, we really appreciate where you are. Let's tell more people about you. I think that's excellent. I love that for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is very unique. I like the word shifts. In sales, there's always a term called KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And so I always look for little acronyms like that. And so
Correct.
shifts is now a new one that I think is going to be branded by your name and with this book, which is very cool. See,
Yeah.
hear, insight, formulate, transform, and succeed. That was right?
Yes, please.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Very cool. No, I love it. It's very cool. Well, I want to deep dive into this book a little bit because I want more people to know about this stuff. And so I understand what you're saying about leaders consistently going to conferences and meetings, and they get all pumped up and they're energized and they want to go back and change culture in their business. And then when they get back there, they have resistance because people have habits and it's hard to break the habits. And so I like the idea, instead of force feeding people new change and getting everyone all worked up, to do something a little bit softer, like a shift, right? Obviously. And so in that regard, what are some of the key pieces that you're talking to leaders about that are trying to implement new things and start shifting the environment that they are a part of? Like, what are some of the little telltale signs of that stuff, and little help tips?
Right. Thank you, Robert. So when I stumbled on these principles, on this methodology, I applied it to my life first. I wrote something on a plain sheet of paper. Actually, it was a car, and I wrote the amount of money I needed for it and just stuck it on the wall in my bedroom. And to my surprise, you know, I left it there. I didn't realize how much effect it was having on me because I was seeing it over and over and over. It was shifting my mindset. And then that was influencing my decisions, influencing my habits. And then eventually I got exactly what I wrote on the sheet of paper. And I thought, is this a coincidence or what? I took that paper away. I put another one there, you know. And this time it was for a house and a brand new car. And it happened exactly like that. I said, wow, if it works for cars, it should work for cash. I tore a check leaf from my checkbook, wrote my name on it, and so on. And I got that money right. After 1 year, I checked my record. I saw I'd gotten it. So I then began to apply it to our organization. So I'm asking leaders, be intentional about what your people see and hear consistently. Talk about your vision every single day, every opportunity you have. Describe your vision. Everyone in your organization has got to know that vision by heart so that it will shape their perspective to life, their interpretation of phenomena, shape how they see people in the organization and how decisions are made. And then I say the environment in your office, the look and feel of the office, that's important. And then the training. The training is very important. Now, this principle of what you see and hear consistently over time, programming you inside, it actually drives many of the industries we have, like advertising. That's why advertising works. That's what it does. Just influences what you see and hear consistently. The media, that's why it's powerful. The entertainment industry, music, movies have such a tremendous effect on people. When I had the first opportunity to travel, out of Nigeria with my wife, we went to Dubai, and that was almost 25 years ago, right? It was a big paradigm shifter for me because I was coming from Africa. It changed, it redefined normal. And then I visited the UK, and then I visited the United States, and it was like my life would never remain the same again because the picture inside me changed. I then began to ask that my associates, my staff, had to take their vacation, and I encouraged them also to travel out of Africa. And it had a profound change on them. So I'm saying to leaders, if you want to create shifts in the mindset of your employees or members of your organization, you need to be intentional about what they see and hear consistently.
Makes sense. And I like the idea that you mentioned leaders being able to implement their mission, their strategy, their belief system into their employees by talking about it every day. And I think it goes back to that HR thing that I actually mentioned, where the leader is able to say, okay, I really envision A, B, C, D for us. I really want to see us do this, this, and this. And when an employee hears their boss kind of brainstorming ideas with them, it enlightens that person to be part of the conversation. Like, why would my supervisor ask me questions like this or tell me things like this? And so that's the leadership thing that I was talking about too. So now those people open up a little bit and they're like, yeah, I could see how I could be a part of that, or I know how we could do this. And if that leader allows that person to blossom into who they are, starting to talk to themselves about who they are kind of deal, then I think that triggers so much within your team and your people. And then the culture starts kind of happening. There's a change in people. There's like a hustle that comes out of them, and a drive to want to go to work every day because now they feel like they're actually part of something that's going to be, huge for a company. I think that's the fire that you light. And it's very cool that you mentioned that, because it's something that I think is a great strategy for business people in general, to share their concepts with their team underneath them, not even just management, but other employees that are there too. Just let people know, like, this is what I'm really thinking about. Do you have any ideas here? Because I think it's a good way to brainstorm with people instead of just being the leader at the top of the food chain, thinking that you're completely alone in that spot.
Oh, Robert, this is such a brilliant thought you expressed here. So I say to leaders, the fact that you're the leader of the team does not actually mean that you're the best person or the brightest on the team. A leader actually should be a broker of talent.
Yep, right? Exactly.
A broker of talent. Let people flourish. Give them the opportunity to contribute, and you would even be amazed at their contributions. One thing is required, though. You've got to have a genuine interest in people's progress and their career. Sometimes we have insecurities. Sometimes we're afraid that if somebody then grows in their competence and they're able to do what we are able to do, that means we're going to be out of a job. And I say, no, 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 no. It means you will be out of the current level of skill. You will be free to move on to a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose of leadership is not to produce followers. It's to produce leaders.
Yep, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. I'm so glad we were able to connect today and chit chat a little bit and just kind of tap into some of your brain. I want people to go check you out. Sam Adeyemi, he has his website. I will link it in the bottom. His Instagram account, obviously you can go follow him there. But on Amazon, you can go check out his new book called Shifts, and I'll also tag that in the description so people can go over and really kind of deep dive into what Dr. Sam has going on. It's definitely a person that people should be paying attention to. Do you have a pretty good library of YouTube conversations as well? Are you putting some videos out there?
Yeah, I have
Yes.
quite
Okay.
a few videos.
Good to know. That's some other stuff that I like to do too. It's always background for me when I'm grinding to listen to a YouTube video or even a Spotify podcast episode where I can just take in some thought leading content. So that's very cool. I appreciate that. So yeah, thanks so much for your time today, Sam. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Robert. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.